Welcome, everybody. I have Noel Pamias here. He has been an IT professional for over 4 years now, the last two specializing in information security. During the time frame, Noel has worked in various roles and responsibilities, including help desk, network support, and information security consultant, and information security analyst. Noel has been an active member in the InfoSec community for a while now, including volunteering at B-Sides as well as SANS. And without further ado,
Thank you, thank you. So let me begin with kind of like giving a little background on what motivated me to uh, build this draft and this presentation. So going a little bit back when I was first, coming out of college and started applying to different roles out there, information security roles, I quickly stumbled upon a brick wall. So essentially, I started applying, and quickly after that, rejection here and there, and it was a learning curve essentially. So the focus of this presentation is kind of like getting some of the things that I learned throughout, my time applying and applying for different roles. Some of the things that worked for me, some of the things that have worked for other security professionals. So in reality, what I want to showcase to you guys above all else is action points. I want you guys to take something out of this presentation. So I highly encourage, if you have a notepad or your phone, please feel free to take notes, pictures. I'm going to be throwing in a lot of online resources that you could use to better prepare yourself to land that internship or that interview, that full-time position, and essentially start your career in information security. So without further ado, who is this talk geared for? So have any of you gotten that dreaded email landing into your inbox before? A couple, right? It's not pretty. I remember when I first started applying and to different companies, and then, oh look, X company replied back. I'm getting an interview, and then I see this. Oh, unfortunately, we proceeded with another candidate because this X and Y. So it really, seeing that email after a couple of times land into your inbox, it really takes a toll on you. You pretty much you get down. But again, I want to show to you guys some of the things that have worked for me and for other security professionals. Hopefully, you can take some of those things out of this talk and hopefully land that interview or that full-time position. So the way I'm going to break this talk, so you guys kind of like get a feeling of what's going to be in store for you guys. Pretty much 5 sections. The first section, we're going to focus on online resources out there that you can go, and pretty much most of them are free. You can go in there, start increasing your technical acumen. That way, when you go to the interview, you're going to feel confident. You're going to be able to, respond to some of the questions they're going to be throwing at you and pretty much understand the technical conversation. You don't have to go to the most high-end and prestigious university to increase your technical acumen. There's a bunch of resources out there, and I'm going to be showing you, a good list that you can take notes, and after this presentation, kind of like start seeing what's out there. What courses can I take? Second section, it's pretty funny. You go online and you search for entry-level positions, and then as you start reading it, you see like, oh, you need 10 certs and you need 10 years of experience. It doesn't kind of make sense, right? How am I going to be able to make it to an entry-level position if they're asking for this huge long list? So here we're going to be talking and focusing in pretty much projects, some of the things you can do in your off time that you can kind of leverage that in order to have some good conversations in your interview. So I'll show you a couple of projects that you can use, and also there's a huge list out there, so always Google. Resume, pretty standard, so we'll talk about keywords, formatting, that type of stuff. Fourth section is really important. We're gonna talk about attitude. You know, you could be the most technical person out there, but if your attitude is not there, that could really hinder your success. So we'll focus in on that. And finally, we're gonna talk about networking. You know, networking is key, and props to you guys for here in B-Sides, Orlando. There's a bunch of like-minded security professionals out there. So this is a good event to start networking, talk to other people, and you never know. You never know the person sitting next to you could be interviewing you a couple of years down the line. So we're going to be focusing in on that. Neat. So first section, let's talk about some online resources out there that you can use to increase your technical acumen. So I'll give you guys a couple of lists. But before jumping into that, you know, pretty basic stuff. The good foundations of every security professional out there is, you know, you gotta have your computer networking in check. So, you know, knowing your protocols, your networking layers, that sort of stuff. Also, programming. You know, some good programming languages out there. Yeah, you can learn some scripting languages like PowerShell. Not only if you can write it, perfect, but if you know, it's a must that you must know how to read it. Essentially, you know, most of the phishing campaigns out there, you know, you get an email sent into your corporate inbox. There's a Word document. You open that, run some macro, and then spawns off PowerShell. So understanding, for example, PowerShell, you know, what is that malicious script doing? Is it going out somewhere, grabbing, you know, a payload, installing that on your system? So that is key. And also operating system. You know, every big company out there is, most of them are a Windows shop. So knowing Windows, knowing Linux, Mac OS, that's a plus and a key. So pretty much, this is the compiled list of some of the resources out there that I want to showcase to you guys. You know, some are free, some you gotta drop in a little bit of cash. But we're gonna go in one by one and see the pros and cons of each one, essentially. So if you want to take a picture, go ahead. We'll dive in into each one of them in a couple of seconds. Cool. So we'll start with some of the free stuff. Have any of you heard of Cybery before? Have used it? Cool. See a couple of hands out there. So the whole slogan is, hey, you can build your IT security career for free. And it's true. You can essentially go in, create an account, go to the search bar, start typing IT security. You're going to find a bunch of courses that are free. So some of the ones that I could recommend, they have a CompTIA Network Plus course, 32 hours worth of material. CompTIA Security Plus, that's 10 and a half hours worth of material. So again, I'm showing you all this because, you know, these are online resources out there that you can go, you can sign up, and you can start increasing your technical acumen. Once you sit down for that interview, you're gonna feel confident, you're gonna understand, you know, some of the questions that are gonna be thrown at you, and it's gonna lead you to a better posture, essentially. So moving along, you have SANS Cyber Aces. SANS, one of the, you know, biggest and largest sources of information security out there. They're actually in town next week here in Orlando. So pretty much a couple of years ago, SANS came together and they were like, hey, there's a big shortage of security professionals our courses are really expensive because they're like, what, $6,000? Not everyone can pay that. So they came together and they were like, hey, we got to come up with something that we can offer to the people that is free and accessible. So they came up with Sans Cyber Aces, and they offer 3 modules essentially. The first one focuses in operating system, especially CLI usage. So the first half talks about Linux usage, especially CLI, and then the second portion is Windows. The second module is networking, so again, covering those fundamentals. And then finally, system admin, especially using PowerShell for like scripting and automating some of the administrative stuff out there. So again, something free. Please feel free to check it out, sign up, and something else that you can add to your wish list, essentially. So the third one that is completely free, it's edx.org. So where SANS, CyberAces, and Cybery is a self-paced course. Essentially, you sign up, take a course. You can continue a day from now, a week from now, a year from now. edx.org, you sign up, and then it's essentially an 8-week class. So you pretty much have to follow up with the program, but it is 8 to 10 hours per day, and it is completely free. Another one that you can add to your bucket list. And now if you want a certificate of completion, it's $150, but regardless if you want that or not, it's completely free. So they offer a course which is called Cybersecurity Fundamentals. So another good one that you can check out and continue building your technical acumen, which is what we want at the end of the day. So let's get into the paid services out there. I was talking to, at B-Sides Tampa, a couple of folks that go to, I think it's USF, I'm sorry. And I believe their university offers PLURALSIGHT, so I highly encourage you guys, if you're in college or university, check out your university's portal. Most of these universities might offer students, a free access to PLURALSIGHT. Have any of you have that type of access with your university? Nope. Then again, go back to your university's portal, and if not, just ask around. Hey, are we getting free access to some online resources? But because chances are you might have some access, so feel free to ask around. So PLURALSIGHT, I've been using it frequently now. My company offers it to me, and they do offer a 10-day free trial, so you can go in and subscribe and see some of the courses they have out there. Like for example, they have a CH 2018 prep, which is 79 hours worth of material, which is a lot. So again, write it down, and this is something you can check out at the end of the presentation. So another one that you can verify is COURSERA. Have you guys heard of COURSERA before? Yeah, we got a couple of hands. So COURSERA, it's paid if you want the certificate of completion and all that, but if you're just interested in the information, you can audit the courses, which means that you can pretty much view all the material you want. You're just not going to participate in class or get the cert at the end. So I know they recently partnered up with Google. So Google offers a couple of courses in COURSERA. So they have like a security and G-Cloud platform, which is a month worth of material, which is a lot. So this is something else that you can add to your bucket list. Check it out, and you're increasing your technical acumen. So lynda.com, they offer a 1 month free trial, and they don't have a big gamma of security courses. They offer about 21 hours worth of IT security courses. So if you do the math, 1 month free trial, 21 hours worth of IT security courses, you can pretty much knock down those IT security courses in a month. So, and if you have a LinkedIn account, you can sync up your LinkedIn with lynda.com, or I think it's already synced. And the classes you're taking are going to be reflected on your LinkedIn account, which, when recruiters are out there looking for people to hire, they can search you up in LinkedIn, and you can appear as one of the searches. Okay, cool. So we talked a little bit about some online resources that you can go to, start subscribing to some of these classes. And remember, the whole purpose of that was to just increase your technical acumen, learn the basics, the fundamentals. Once you get into that interview, you're going to feel more confident, more comfortable answering some of the technical questions. But going back to the example of, you find this entry-level position and they're asking for like 5 years worth of experience and a bunch of certifications, and you still don't have that IT security related experience. What do we do in that sense? So here I'm going to show you guys a couple of projects that you can use and start working on in your off time. And pretty much I'm going to divide those projects into two fields. So the first section is defensive projects. So if you're more interested in like blue team activities, security operations type of activities, if you want to work in that dedicated team that protects the company's information resources from outside and internal threats, I'll show you a couple of projects that you can use, and you can start building upon that. Now, if you're more interested in some of the more offensive projects, pen testing, vulnerability assessment, I'll show you a couple of projects that you can start working on. And this is something that you can add to your resume. It is something that once you sit down and start interviewing, that's a talking point with a security professional. You can start, hey, I did this project and I did this and that. And the interviewer can see that you're living and breathing security, that you're in your off time, you're doing projects, so you're heavily involved in that. So let's start with some of the defensive projects first. Okay, so at the heart of every security operations team, you're going to have a SIM, security information event manager, pretty much that system that's receiving all the logs from all your system, your endpoints, your firewalls, your networking devices. Incident responders uses a SIM to pretty much investigate threats and events as they arise in the environment. They can use that to go back and kind of like build out the story of what happened, when did it happen, and how can we mitigate that. So one of the projects you can do, you can pretty much you can download Splunk. There's also Elastic, which is an open source a platform, and you can build your own instance. Splunk is used by 90 of 100 Fortune 100 companies. Elastic is used by a lot of companies as well. Splunk, you can download a free license and host it in a Linux distro. So I highly encourage you to start, if you haven't done so yet, start building these different systems in your home network. And let's say you're applying for this position at a company, and let's say they're using Elastic or they're using Splunk. If they can see in your resume that you have a build in your own home network and you're already creating alerts, you're creating dashboards, that's going to speak really highly of you. So I highly encourage you guys to go on in and start seeing some of the projects you can do and some of the SIMs you can install. Another project you can do is Pi-hole. Have any of you used a Pi-hole before at your house? We got one. Okay. So pretty much it's an ad blocker. You can get an ad blocker for your browser or a plugin for your browser. Pi-hole is pretty much going to act as a DNS sinkhole at the network layer. So pretty much those annoying ads that you get at YouTube, or the other websites. You can block it in your house at the network level. But the whole purpose of this project is that you're gonna, as you start building it, you're gonna get more comfortable with some of these terminologies, how this DNS work, all of that. And it's pretty simple to run. You can run it on a Raspberry Pi if you want to. And you can start playing around and see how the backend works. Again, this is something you can throw in your resume, and you can use this as a talking point when you're interviewing, essentially. There's a bunch more projects, but I thought this was a neat one to kind of like highlight. You have the repository there, so you can go there and download the software for it. Okay, PFSense. It's a open source firewall. If you don't have a firewall in your or a high-end firewall in your home network, this is an open source. You can pretty much install it on a basic hardware at your house. As long as you have a spare computer with 2 Ethernet ports, one for your WAN and your LAN, you're pretty much set up. So cool thing about PFSense is you can install a snort package. So for example, Cisco has Firepower, which is their intrusion detection system. Snort is on the back end. So Snort is going to be your alerting system that as traffic flows through your network and outside your network, Snort is going in and analyzing, looking for specific strings, hex strings, and matching those potentially malicious packets that are going in and out through your network. So, most of these companies, if not all of them, have an IDS in their perimeter. So if you go into the interview and if you're showing in your resume like, hey, I have a Snort installation in my house and I build this rule set and I developed my own custom Snort rules. I was modifying it, disabling, alerting, managing the system. That's going to speak really highly of you. So this is something that I highly recommend. If you have a chance, you can work on it on your off time. And again, you're breathing and living security. So this is something you can bring to the table when you're interviewing. So if you're more interested in pen testing, vulnerability assessment, that sort of stuff, some of the projects you can work on, CTFs. They offer one here, pretty much every B-sites. If you're in university, they have CTFs that you can go to. But if you want to kind of like get your feet wet and start working on CTFs, kind of like not in a big group, but maybe in your own house, your leisure of your own house, there's a couple of resources out there. So for beginners, if you want to check out CTFs or capture the flags, I recommend going to Ridiculously Easy one, and they have a bunch of CTFs out there. So you can start working on CTFs, kind of like understand, how to gain a foothold in an environment. They're going to give you a vulnerable system. And then they're going to say like, hey, your end objective is to have admin level access. But to get there, you got to start poking holes, see what are the vulnerabilities in the system, do port scanning, ping sweeps, try to get your some type of access to the box. And you're building your skill sets. You're getting better at penetration testing and vulnerable assessments. Another one you can check out, it's I have the GitHub there, is Damn Vulnerable Note app. So that's another one you can use. And again, you're building your skill sets. Have any of you used one of those references before? Okay, cool. Got a couple of hands there. Neat. Let's move on. Okay, a little bit more advanced, but as new software providers are coming up with their new softwares or new websites, they're paying for people to find bugs within their services, within their softwares, within their web servers. So as you get more comfortable in this topic, you can start, obviously, within the limits that they establish. You can start, poking holes to see what vulnerabilities you can find in those new softwares or web servers or websites. and essentially they're paying money for that. And this is something that you can highlight as an achievement, and again, you can put it in your resume, and that's going to speak highly of you. So I highly encourage you to go online, go to BugCrowd, HackerOwn, and start seeing what are companies looking for as far as bug bounties. So Tenable is a vulnerability scanner that is used across a bunch of companies. You can find them. You can find other solutions out there, but the cool thing about Tenable is you can try it at your home network for free. You're only limited to 15 IPs that you can scan, but again, if you're interested in landing a vulnerability assessment or pen testing role, this is some great experience that you can start working at your own home. You can start. I mean, if you go into an interview and it's for a vulnerability analyst role, and if you're stating that, hey, in my house, I install Linux and Tenable, and I pretty much found all of these vulnerabilities. I mitigated those. I patched the systems. That is something that's going to help you a lot to, get to the next round and hopefully land that full-time role or position. So pretty basic. You're just going to focus on some of the tips and tricks on your resume. Most of them you're probably already familiar with. But let's talk about some guidelines essentially. So some do's, you want to highlight your accomplishments. You don't want to really you don't want to copy and paste your job responsibilities from your previous job and paste it in your resume. You want to highlight, your accomplishments. What did you bring into the table? Did you reduce the time of a process by incorporating this? Did you design a script that made life easier for other people in your team? Did you save money by doing some tuning or by creating a new procedure? That is some of the stuff that you want to show in your resume. Also, you want to keep it to 1 to 2 pages. You don't want to do a CV like the doctors do, a 10-page resume. You want to keep it short and simple. And that's where you're highlighting your accomplishments is going to kick in. Also, action verbs. You can go online and Google action verbs, and you're going to find a huge list that you can use. And pretty much you want to put your action verbs at the beginning of each of one of your accomplishments. So again, Google, there's a huge list out there, and start incorporating that in your resume. As far as structure, you want to a good guideline is to start with your summary, and then with your education, your experience or your projects, and then your certifications. And if you keep that frame, that guidelines, you're going to pretty much be set at 1 page, 2 page max. So one of the things you want to avoid, obviously, you want to avoid typos, grammatical errors. You want to avoid the standard summary that's out there. The highly organized, successful individual looking for position in this industry. You want to avoid that. So just stick to a good summary that's going to make you pop out. So do any of you know what an ATS is? No? ATS, application tracking system. So pretty much an application tracking system, these big companies, they put a job posting and they're going to get a lot of resumes thrown at them. Thousands, 2,000s, depending how big the company is. So one way they got around that is to incorporate what is called an application tracking system. Pretty much you have this service, and as resumes come in, it analyzes, looks for keywords, and it's going to put a percentage on your resume. So how close you are to the actual job responsibilities that they're looking for is how they're going to move you up and essentially land your resume into an actual human being that's going to read your resume. If it's below that threshold, then you're going to get that email that we were discussing at the beginning of this presentation. The thank you for applying, but we found other candidates, yada, yada. So one of the things, there's a bunch of resources out there, but one of the ones that I was using is jobscan.co. You can check it out, but essentially you go to their service, you copy and paste the job description of the role you want to apply for. You paste it there. And then in the other box, you're going to copy and paste your resume. Now, what JobScan is going to do, it's going to analyze the two, and it's going to give you a percentage. So it's going to say like, hey, your resume is matching a 50%. Try adding this, this, and that. Change this to this. And it's, sucks a little bit the way the system is built. But if you want to beat the ATS and have your resume land into an actual human being, this is a good resource that I recommend you guys to check out. So they have a free version that you can use, but they also have a paid version. I remember the time I was using the free one. I think you're limited to a couple of comparisons or scans per day, I think it was. It was a while back, but they do offer a free one. Mm-hmm. Any more questions? Nope. Okay, so another resource that I was using when I was proofreading my resume is Grammarly. So again, they do offer a free one, but if you want like the high-end one, it's a paid service. But Grammarly, essentially, you can use this resource to kind of like proofread your resume and start fixing like grammatical errors and also can match plagiarisms. So I know with the premium service, you can have someone like an actual professional in proofreading proofread your resume for you. So, but if that's kind of like out of your budget, always have someone, a family member, a friend, proofread your resume for you, and have at least 2 or 3 people. You're gonna see a lot of improvements that way. So let's talk now about attitude. So you can be the most technical person out there, but if you're lacking the proper attitude, that really can hinder you as you try to interview and land that full-time position. I was part of a interview process not too long ago, and one of the things that really stand out about the applicant that actually got the job was his attitude. He did have the technical skills and all the requirements, but his attitude really set him apart. He was really humble in the questions he was asking and the way he was presenting himself, and you could really see how hungry he was for that position. He went above and beyond. He pretty much contacted months before the position was open, contacted one of my senior managers expressing his interest in information security and expressing his interest at working at my company as an information security analyst. And he came out across as someone being really humble. He wanted to get advice into how to get into the field. He eventually did a full day of just shadowing us at the office, and he pretty much got to meet the whole team months later. When we opened the position, he interviewed and he passed all the interviews, and he pretty much set himself to success because of his attitude and going above and beyond. So that's something that you guys can keep in mind. So some of the do's and don'ts regarding attitude, you wanna research the company. Obviously, you don't wanna. If you land the interview, you want to go in and you want to have a clear understanding of what the company does. It's going to be a little bit embarrassing if they ask you, what's the mission of the company, and you don't know what the scope is. So that's a good 20 minutes, 30 minutes of research beforehand. That's going to help you out a lot. Again, showing initiative. That example that I told you, he was showing a lot of initiative. Months before they opened the job posting, he was reaching out. He was talking with people within the field, and he was essentially being humble and asking like, hey, how can I better myself? So again, showing initiative. Being honest. If they ask you a question and you don't know the answer, honesty goes a long way. Don't lie your way about it. Just be humble about it. Like, hey, I don't know the answer to that question, but if you give me, if I had a couple of hours, I can get you that answer. Or I can, when I stumble upon, when someone asks me something and I don't know, I just research it, but I'll find you the answer. That's the attitude they want to bring into the table. And also be grateful and appreciatively. Those follow-up emails can go a long way. They really help out, and it shows that you're appreciative for their time, and that is something that you can incorporate to your interview process. And finally, the last section we're going to talk about is networking. Networking is key. Big props to you guys. You're here at B-Sides. So, make the best out of it. There's a bunch of security professionals out there. Talk to them. Be humble. Ask for advice. Like, hey, I want to get into the field. What can I do? What do you recommend? Like, what lessons learned did you learn when you were first starting out in this industry? As you meet new people and start expanding your network, you never know if the person sitting next to you can actually end up interviewing you down the line. So that's something you guys want to keep in mind. So, like I said, make the best out of these events. Be humble, ask for feedback, and this one's really important. Whenever you can, volunteer. I did it at B-Sides Orlando last year, and I met a great group of people. I did it also at B-Sides Tampa. So if you get the chance for the next B-Sides 2020, try to volunteer. You're going to meet a lot of security professionals that can help you shape your career and get eventually where you want to go. So that's pretty much it. I hope that you guys are able to take some good key points out of this presentation that are going to help you land that interview and essentially pass it and get that entry-level position or that information security related position. So with that being said, I'm going to open up the floor. Do you guys have any questions for me?
I got a question.
Yes.
Regarding follow-up in the digital age, does sending a handwritten card still hold weight, or is email better? What would be better, do you think?
So sending in a handwritten card is, I've researched that question before, and you might get a pretty unique response, but you're pretty much doing it differently. So I've heard stories in the past before where, they're sending in handwritten cards. That's different than having like 1,000 emails. You have actual something physical. So I've seen cases where that has worked out really well in the past. I remember reading about this tech company not too long ago that the interviewee actually sent in donuts to the office, and they were really a donut with pack of donuts with a thank you card, and that really stand out to the team. He eventually got selected for the position. So I would say it's something worth a try, and you want to stand out, and that is a good way of standing out, as long as you're fitting in all the requirements that they're looking for. Any other question? Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate your time and enjoy the rest of the day.